Alrighty, friends, we are back, and this is your favorite podcast show of the week, Location Weekly. This is episode number 706, and we are recording on February the 21st. If you are watching the video version of this show, you will see a new slash old face on the other side of the screen here today. The original co-host of this show with me from way back in the day, 2010, I think, is when we started this, Rob. Rob Woodbridge is here. How are you?
Asif, I am wonderful. It's great to be back. How many times have I asked to co-host again since I was ejected? And all of those rejection letters that you sent, I finally broke through, and I appreciate the opportunity to come back and do this again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
No,
a
we're
little older.
we're yeah, we're well, I am anyways. I don't know. You look the same, but yeah.
2010? 2010. Like so that's
2010. Yeah.
15 years ago. Are we talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's okay, so that's how long this podcast has been running.
Yes. Yes. And we've only really missed, I think, in all that time. I'm going to say that we've missed less than 10 weeks.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That is admirable
Yeah. So
because
it's,
how many podcasts or carcasses of podcasts litter the all the podcast directories? They do them for like 10 episodes or five
yeah.
episodes and then they get bored. Everybody
Yeah.
thinks they should do a podcast and then they do it and they realize that it's not as easy as they think it is, and then they run out of things to say.
Yeah.
15 years.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. It's like, if you can cross that threshold and stay with it, like, you can sustain and do something, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
And it's
And I
also like
bet you
just
felt guilty.
finding the time every week to do it. And like, like just people have other things going on. And like Aubriana has obviously been tied up for the last number of weeks with her new startup. Wishing her luck with that. So yeah,
Yes.
lots going on. So, all right. Well, we have four stories that we want to cover today, and I'm going to kick it off, which is unusual. But we are going to start in Australia, where Toyota has launched what they're calling the second phase of their Every Step Matters campaign. And what they're doing is they're using location data to create 230 bespoke out-of-home ads on screens. So this is on roadside signage. It's designed to give drivers kind of to the nearest Toyota dealership, like information about what they're promoting and try to entice them to come in and check out a new car. So I think it's interesting. It's from a consumer perspective, you could say, well, if you're going to reach me, I'm already on the road. I'm already in a car. You have an opportunity to influence me, perhaps with, thinking about how shitty my car is that I'm driving right now or something like that. I don't know. I think the location data part of it is like it's a good way to do this with out of home because you can literally say, okay, this billboard, this screen is in this spot, the closest dealership's over here, and provide, very specific, geo-based directions, to have people navigate there rather than, so it's not one ad on every screen. It's a localized ad to the localized dealership. Um, and it's not generic in that sense. So I think that's, we've seen good success with those types of things in the past. And I think the potential here for integration within their broader digital ecosystem is also interesting. So, targeting, these ads to highlight, real-time dealership promotions and service offers or test drive opportunities, things like that, I think could be interesting because if it's truly local to the local dealership that you're using that billboard for, then, it doesn't have to just be a general ad for the latest vehicle. It can be very specific to, we have a special on oil changes, happening here, or whatever the case might be. So I think it's an interesting opportunity. I think from a tech perspective, we're not talking rocket science here. There's nothing, new or innovative or interesting, but I think it's a good localized, use of out of home uh, in the car dealership space. Any thoughts from you?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it right on the head when you said, like I'm driving my car on a highway, and it's either going to remind me of how bad my car is, and maybe it's time to do it, or it's something specific like a service tune-up or something like that. Because I'm not often, and I don't know many people who are often driving along the highway and decide to buy a car as they're driving on the highway. But it's this brand reinforcement that happens over and over and over again. I suppose. I always think like, why don't they like wrap tow trucks? Like, why doesn't Toyota have a fleet of tow trucks that are out there? And because those are the guys that I had a Mazda. It's not a Toyota, but like my car stopped on our main highway, and you're that guy that has to pull over into the side during rush hour and block everything, and the tow trucks come in. At that moment, I'm the most vulnerable. I'll buy anything just to get this. Like, take me to any dealer at this point, but get rid of this car. So
Right.
it is brand reinforcement, but I think you hit it right. Is that it's either to remind you how crappy your car is, or it's going to it's just for servicing or tuning or very specific
Yeah.
local initiatives.
And where maybe where you are in that cycle. Like
Yeah,
I would say like for me right now, like I'm not actively shopping for a
looking.
car,
Yeah,
but I did just get a reminder from, Volvo. I drive a Volvo that my lease is about to be up in a few months. And and I get the service light coming on saying I got to take it in and get serviced on the engine or whatever. So like, if I'm seeing things
there's
like this,
timings. Yeah.
roadside wise, the timing of that could be enough that it might be like, oh, well, it's still 6 months away and I wasn't ready to start looking yet, but you just enticed me to come in.
I don't know if when I go to the gym or I'm at any of the like a grocery store or whatever like that, and I park and I look up and I look at the cars. I'm that guy that'll go look inside of the car that I'm interested in, right? Like I'm in there and
Yeah,
I'm like, so everybody who's got their interior cams, they see me looking in the window like right against the window to see. That's how I find my next desired vehicle.
there you go. There
Yeah,
you go. All
well, it's
right,
an interesting story. Going
moving
from
on.
that, like, what do we talk about video games? Like, I've never played Pokemon Go. I mean, not by myself. It's hard to imagine, but my kids certainly were right in it, completely immersed. And I know a lot of adults that play Pokemon Go religiously, and I was much more interested so Pokemon Go obviously is Niantic, and there is speculation that they are about to unload their gaming division, and specifically Pokemon Go, to Scopely. Excuse me, Scopely, which is a Saudi Arabia, whose parent company is Savvy Games Group from Saudi Arabia. But I was always more interested in the Ingress game because it was like a
Hmm.
spy game, right? And it was built on the same platform. But this is possibly a $3.5 billion deal that Niantic is going to unload the games to Scopely. What was surprising to me as an old guy is that this game has generated $8 billion or so in revenue over its lifetime, which is astounding. But like it pales in comparison to some of the other games that are out there, and this is a very interesting deal because you've got Niantic, who is a technology first augmented reality platform, and then a game came out. And then you've got
Hmm.
somebody like Scopely, who is a game company that develops games and looks for the latest and greatest in categories. And this is obviously one of those massive categories, augmented reality games, and what Niantic has done. And so there's this really interesting play here is that if you take the game out of the technologist's hands and put it into the gamer's hand, what happens to this game? Does it become better than it is right now? And I think that there's a really interesting play here. If this, in fact, does come to fruition, that maybe there's I mean, people still play this game, but maybe there's more hope for more development, for more platform, for more everything that comes from a company that's willing to invest in the game, not so much just the platform or the technology, and copy it across all these other platforms. But I think that there is a very interesting play here, but I wonder what happens. Like, are they buying the brand, or I guess they're buying all of the technology and all of the infrastructure, all that augmented reality and geospatial pieces that make up what Pokemon Go is, and how long will it take for them to, if this is true, how long it would take for them to really build this into what it could really be, and all the other platforms. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, we on the show, I guess about a month ago now, maybe not even that long ago, we talked about Niantic's visual positioning system and their spatial, platform, right? So like, I mean, that is obviously their focus. So unloading something like Pokemon Go makes a ton of sense. I think the question for me is like, so whether it's Scopely or whoever is going to, take this thing on, there's still what 500 million downloads or whatever many people
It's
have this thing.
crazy.
Like, so there's a lot of people who are interested in playing this. So what
Yeah,
does that mean for them, right? Going forward? Does that mean like a new owner, deep pocketbooks, they're going to invest in building the game out further? Um, like I don't know, like what that means. Like it's and if you think about it, when Pokemon Go first came out and Niantic, was kind of pushing into this space, it was really with this sort of motivation, or at least they said at that time, the motivation was to get people outdoors more and active and
that's
exploring,
right.
the world around them, right? So, and obviously AR, VR, like these are fantastic technologies to do that with, right? To create these layers on top of the physical world. So again, a new owner comes into that, like, is that, their motivation, or is their motivation like, how do we make money from this thing? How many ads can we sell on it? Like,
Yeah.
like what does that mean in terms of the future of the game itself? I think is, certainly up for discussion, right? Because if you don't handle that transition well, you could quickly lose, hundreds of millions of people, right? I remember different thing here, but I remember when Facebook acquired Gowalla back in the day,
It's old school, right?
and old school, right? So you had, Gowalla and Foursquare going head to head at that time. Facebook wanted to get more into the location-based data space. They acquired Gowalla, they rolled it in, and it disappeared as a platform, consumer facing anyways. But it became the basis for a lot of their internal location engineering team and all those kinds of things. But from a consumer's perspective, one of the biggest complaints with the acquisition was people loved Gowalla, and they were like happy to have Gowalla have their data and their information. And as soon as that was in the hands of Facebook, they were like, no, we don't want Facebook to have our data. We don't like, how do we get our data back? Like that we gave to Gowalla. So there's all these kinds of things I think that are, always have to be explored in terms of valuation too, right? Because, if I'm Scopely, I'm sitting there going, well, $3.5 billion, that's a lot of money. Am I actually going to be able to maintain this, get a return on this going forward, right? So lots of questions, but I think from a Niantic perspective, I like
Yeah, like allowing them to focus on
it.
the thing. But it's just it's a weird, like Niantic is an interesting company to me because it's like like as I said before, they're a technology company, right? Like that's what they're trying to prove. So whether they want people to go outside and walk around or not, I mean, they become a danger when they're walking around with their head in their phone the whole time. But they're a technology company, and yet they've been able to build like the technology, like they were the first real successful augmented reality game because they married the right technology. And I remember at the very beginning, it would always fail. It was choppy. It was difficult to use. But they married the very first that platform, augmented reality, and geospatial and location all together with a brand that is so beloved, right? And it was just like it was this perfect mix, and they have not been able to recapture that no matter what they do. Like all the other platforms, they're successful, but none by far as compared to Pokemon Go. So like it really is. It's an interesting play because that brand of Pokemon now it could be in somebody else's hands, and it has to be managed like as effectively and with as much care as Niantic has done to this point to enable it to have 500 million people using it or downloading the app, like and
Yeah.
generating $8 billion in revenue. Okay, yeah, that is not that is like that is success right there. What they've done by accident, it would almost seem. So
Well,
it'll be
doesn't
interesting to
hurt that
see.
you come from the Google family
Google,
of
yeah,
companies, so
yeah.
like you've got that behind you.
Imagine deciding
Anyhow,
one day, like, oh, you know what, this $8 billion albatross, get it off my back. We
yeah,
don't need that 8 billion.
we don't. No.
Oh,
All right,
good for them.
moving on to our third story now. So one of our newest members in the LBMA family slash old members of the LBMA family, has re-engaged, and that is Yext. So, I think most people in our industry know who Yext is, but if you don't, they're a digital presence management platform for multi-location brands, so restaurant chains, retailers, helping them with, SEO, listings management, reputation management, all those kinds of things. And so they've made an acquisition of a company called Places Scout, which is also a player in the SEO and location intelligence space. And so they're rolling these things together. And I think, for me, what I see here is, this is all about taking core technologies that these two companies have, layering AI, on top of that to create smarter listings management, real-time SEO insights, which is what Places Scout's data historically has done across Google and Apple Maps and Yelp. Um, they're talking about, an integrated sort of AI-driven ranking insights type of system, so predictive analytics that help brands understand how to improve their local search rankings. And I really like that piece because I think that anytime you talk about insights or information that you're delivering, as part of a solution to a client, the first level of pushback, we get this at Ground Level Insights all the time too, is thanks for all this great information about what's going on with my business. What do I actually do with this now? Like, how do I act on that? Right. So, like, if you can actually give people, some kind of recommendations on how to improve their search rankings or what to do with this or how to act on it, I think that's good. And also there's a side by side performance analysis piece. So like a dashboard where you can compare your brand's locations to your competitors, and see how that stacks up. So I love that piece of it. So a lot's going on here. Obviously, there's whole heat mapping and location geospatial visualizations of how your business is performing or struggling, as well. So it's a good combination here, and we're excited as an organization to be working with the Yext and the Places Scouts team here. They will be at our Chicago Retail Loco event as well as our European conference. So just to mention those, so Retail Loco will be in Europe March 31st in Munich. And we'll also then be in Chicago April 29th and 30th for the Spring US conference. So you'll see Yext at both of those. Any thoughts from you on this?
Yeah, it's always interesting because my only question really is and it's not a thought, it's a question, is like, who is this really tailored towards? So like what level of company needs something like this where they want to be tailored, or they need this kind of data? Who is it really focused on?
Typically, these are like you're talking, franchise chains, with 100+ locations, right? I mean, that's kind of the sweet spot that they go for. So, I mean, not that I mean, they serve enterprise, as well. So they're dealing with McDonald's and, all those kinds of brands. But, I think it's anybody, I would say, with more than 100 locations.
Yeah. And that makes sense because you're comparing something to something, right? Like that's really what it's got to be, is that that's where this we come from startups, Alok, and you deal with a lot more larger companies than I do, but when we're not in a company my size is not in the refinement mode, right? Like we're still in the brute force, what we call like the I don't even know, the rookie mode, where everything we do has an impact on the business, and then this seems to me like it's one of those things that like you are now at a level where you can really find tremendous value out of, and high value, like high earn or high savings or high, like directing money the appropriate way in how you're spending it when you're at that high level where you're not dealing with small budgets like we deal with,
Mm.
tiny little fractions.
Yeah.
Well,
All right.
okay, this one's near and dear. What maps software do you use for your navigation? What is it? Are you
So
along
on
everybody
my
else?
phone I use Apple Maps pretty regularly. In my car I use Google Maps.
Is there a reason for your
It's well,
car?
in the car it's just built in automatically into the
Oh,
nav
okay.
system. It's just easy.
Yeah.
But when I'm just searching things on my phone, like Apple Maps is the first place I go.
Yeah, Maps to me is, and Google Maps was always to me like an operating system, like a calendar is an operating system. Google Maps, we talked about this really early on in the day, is that when you want to find out anything about a business, I go to a Maps tool, like
Yep.
either Google or Apple, and I punch in the business name and I find everything that I need. The phone number, it's the yellow pages,
Yep.
it's the
It's all
ratings,
there.
it's all there. But like here's the context of the story is that there is a that Apple is considering introducing paid advertising into their Apple Maps product, just like Google does. And like I moved away from Google Maps because of this, right? So here's the challenge. Now, this was revealed in an all hands meeting that
Hmm.
this is potentially coming down the road, and they are considering putting paid ads in Google Maps or in Apple Maps, and it's all obviously contextualized, right? So it's location-based ads,
Hmm.
the way that Google does it. It's very interesting because when Apple introduced their Maps product, it was terrible. Remember those early days? It wasn't the greatest. It was sending people into the middle of lakes. It was doing things that you should, right? And people would follow it blindly. And it wasn't me. But what has happened really quickly is this erosion on Google's part as a result of Apple and Apple Maps. Is that now because the iPhone is so dominant, you have this challenge, which is Google has only retained about 40% of its historic mobile traffic on iOS devices. And it's just not recovering because Apple's product, maybe it's not as good as Google's at this point, but it's good enough. We're not
Yeah.
driving to the middle of lakes anymore or dead ends. So this is an interesting play for them to move into this space. We all know what this means for something like Apple. Like there's revenue in advertising. I don't know if you knew that. There's revenue right there
How
in
come we can't
advertising.
we can't make any money from it, Rob?
No, no, but it has to be like, yeah,
Okay.
you need 1 billion users first. Like
Oh, is
that's the
that okay?
key.
That's what we've been missing. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, just
Yeah.
1 billion users. Like it seems so easy, right? Just to get 1 billion users. So like it really is like you have a product here that's been in market for many years. You have a loyal fan base. It's default in your app, in the phone that you bought. It's an Apple product, obviously, and so people love it. And so it really is the opportunity is there for them to just add literally billions of dollars in revenue overnight, right? So uh, that's the optimist take. My take, really, I'm challenged by this. As I said, I left Google Maps because of the intrusive nature of Google. I hate Google knowing everything about me, right? Every little thing about me. And it only always recommended McDonald's to me on the map, anyways. And that was it. And I don't eat McDonald's. But one of the things that Apple has been known for, obviously, is not new to everybody who listens, is their privacy focused, front facing persona. Like this is what they like. They are privacy first, right? They've been asked
Hmm.
1,000 times to unlock phones that might contain something about a murder or something that happens. And they're like, nope, we're not doing it. We're privacy focused, privacy first. So, how do you balance that, which is location based ads in Apple Maps with this idea that they are privacy focused or privacy first? Like it's in that you can't. Like we don't track you, we don't keep your information in the cloud, it's all in the device. And now all of a sudden you've got these ads that are following you around and may eventually flow into your preferences as an Apple user. How do you keep the trust? And for me, that is the big thing here. Is that worth sacrificing? They've been on a pulpit and they have raised like their entire business is around the sanctity of their users' data. And here they are thinking, we're going to go and spend money, or we're going to go earn billions of dollars. And I think that that erodes that brand. That's my thought on this. I'm not sure what you think of this.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think, that is one of the key differentiators, right, between Google and Apple in that sense. I mean, uh, the privacy thing is a tough one, right? I think, Apple would have to do something like on-device processing, of data in order to personalize ads without doing any kind of tracking, or something along those lines. Um, but that limits, obviously the scope of, what they can do ad wise, right? Um, there's, I mean, there's still ways to pull location data in a non, personalized way. And so
Yeah,
I'm sure they can find that balance. It's, the good thing that Apple's been able to do, and I think a lot of the app companies that we work with, that are successful is it's all about disclosure and consent and making sure that that user is fully aware of what they're collecting, how they're storing it, and is it being used in a way that's beneficial to you or me or whoever, right? Like, because I think like we've always said in our space, right, is that as long as I'm getting, there's a good utility there, I'm getting value,
yeah,
I'm generally okay to share information in exchange for something I want. And
yeah,
so I think if they don't, put this in the cloud, if they process the data on the device, there's ways to do that in an interesting sense. And I think, there's a lot to be said for, if we look at Google's Waze platform, and how ads were displayed on that, there was a lot of success there in terms of
yeah,
driving incremental revenue to, local restaurants as I'm driving or things like that. And so I think if you can start to pull some of that sort of feel to how you're delivering ads, and there's a relevancy to it in terms of I'm getting brands that I care about, or I'm getting categories of things that I care about. Um, and maybe you're giving the consumer a chance to actually speak into that process, like
yeah.
in an upfront, way, then you can differentiate a service here. And I think it's
You have to.
I don't think I mean, we all know, how big Apple is and how big Google is and how much money these companies make, but you know, no one's going to say no to additional billions of dollars in revenue.
No,
It's
well, you
coming.
like you can't, and you have to. We come from Canada. We didn't even mention that there's two Canadians on the show for the first time in a long time, buddy. Like that's
Two
huge.
Canadians, and
Two Canadians.
we're still our own country. We're not the 51st state yet.
That's right. We
We,
still own the ice rink.
we still own the ice rink. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
Well,
was pretty awesome last night.
I think that the like when you've got this I mean maybe it's a Canadian point of view here is that you've got a company like Apple who is known for something and known deeply for something, and it's rooted in its DNA, and I was kind of hoping that they've done things differently than everybody else, right? Like so when everybody was outsourcing the hardware, like BlackBerry or RIM was outsourcing its hardware and it wasn't owning the stack, they owned the stack. They built the hardware, they built the software, they built the operating system. They did it all complete. And then this ecosystem that they built around their services, it's $100 billion a year in revenue that generates from all of their services, like Apple TV and the cloud and right, and Apple News and Apple Music, and so they've managed to stay away from the fray of advertising. And so if they go into advertising like they're going to do, obviously with Apple Maps, then they have to do it differently than everybody else has done it. Because it's a weird thing for me to think is that like you hold these companies in higher regard because of who they are and the brand that they built, and you just expect it's like going into Harry Rosen in Canada versus like Old Navy, right? Harry Rosen does it differently. Maybe the same clothes, who knows? But they do it differently. And I think that what happens with Apple is that they have to think about how they present that data differently, different than Waze, different than Google, different, in a way that an Apple user who, quite frankly, is a little snobby, right? wants to make sure that they're being that it's like it's an elite level, like a white glove concierge level service, right? If you're going to sell my data, it better be good. That's all I can think about is that they have to think differently about how they're going to display this stuff. I like the idea there because I use Google Map, I use Apple Maps for everything. It's in my car, and when I'm looking for a gas station, I mean, quite like I'll ask Siri to point me in the gas station, and it's not very well done, right? Like that whole
Yeah.
aspect of it is not very well done, and so maybe there's opportunities in there to know that in my Apple Wallet there is an ESO card or a like a PC, and then make the recommendations that way to be helpful, as you said. So maybe there's a balance there, but
Yeah.
still
Well,
data.
and that's where like I think like I said at the beginning, like I use Apple Maps for most things, like off my phone, but in my car because the Google Maps is fully integrated into
Integrated.
the vehicle. It's interesting because my car will come up like on the screen. It'll say, um, you know, like you're running out of gas. You need to fill up. Like the car's telling me that it's getting low, and then it's like, do you want us to find you a gas station nearby?
Wow.
So
Yeah.
it's doing all of that, and Google Maps is in behind that, right? So it's an interesting thing that way, right?
You're getting
You know,
hungry, Rob.
you're getting hungry, Rob. It's not doing that yet, but yeah,
That's what
it
it's
will.
doing.
So
But if you do your calorie trackers on your phone and you know your breakfast was 4 hours ago and you're driving, it should tell you that you're hungry. Here's a great restaurant. This is the difference between a Volvo and a Mazda. What you just said
right,
there. My
right.
Mazda is pretty simple. It doesn't tell me what to do. It doesn't tell me anything.
Yeah.
No, just
So
just it leaves it up to me, and it's me on the side of the road out of gas because I don't get those notifications. That's what happens.
has that happened, Rob? I don't think so.
I don't not
Yeah,
not quite.
yeah,
Here's what I try to do. I know the stories are done, but here's what I try to do is that I like it's a little game that I play with my car because you know how instead of having a meter to tell you how much gas you have in your car, it says how many kilometers you have left
yep.
to drive before you get gas. And my goal is always to get that down under the temperature that it is outside. So on my dash, it says whatever, like 10 degrees outside, 15 Celsius, whatever it might be. And
Hmm.
my goal is I won't fill up until I get below that. It's very difficult in the winter. I gotta tell you, because it's minus 10 or minus
Yeah.
20. I can't do it in the winter, but in the summer, that's my goal. If it's like, I love it when
Okay.
it's 22 degrees and I'm like, okay, I'm down to 18 kilometers left. And the lowest I've had is like, it was 4 degrees outside. I got it down to one. And then that's how
Wow.
close I
Wow.
come.
That's impressive.
Yeah. It's a game.
Okay.
Try it, everybody. Try
Try
it.
it.
Let me know how it
Okay.
goes. It's
Okay.
ridiculous.
Well, that was great. And so, for our listeners and viewers out there, you've been taking in episode number 706 of Location Weekly. We really appreciate your time. It's been an extreme pleasure to have Rob back with us.
Thank you,
I
buddy.
think we're going to try to do this, what, like once a month or something?
I would love to.
And so
I guess it
you'll
depends
see.
on how this goes, right? We'll see what the
We'll
response
see.
is
Like
like.
if you guys like react and there's lots of thumbs up and great comments and reach out to Rob on LinkedIn and tell him that you loved it and you
Let's
wanted to
do it,
see
buddy.
it all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we really appreciate it and we're gonna try and make it a more regular thing. And yeah, thanks everybody. We'll be back with another show next week as we always are. But until then, have a great week. Enjoy some preseason baseball. Um, there's lots happening out there, lots of things to take in and enjoy. So yeah, we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.